All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive. And let me tell you, this one is going deep. We are talking about the gut microbiome and its impact on your immune system. You ever get that feeling like your stomach is having a whole conversation down there that you're not really invited to? Well, we're going to be listening in on some of those conversations today. Specifically, we're going to be unpacking this incredible research paper from the folks over at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. They published this huge review on the role of the microbiota in immunity and inflammation back in 2014 in the journal Cell. So it's some serious science, and we're going to break it all down for you. Okay, so before we launch into the nitty gritty, let's just level set for a second. When we say the word microbiome, what exactly are we talking about? Because it seems like everybody's throwing that word around these days.
Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword, but for good reason. The microbiome isn't just about bacteria hanging out in your gut, though they are definitely there. It's more like a bustling city, a really complex community of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and all these other tiny organisms. Scientists are still trying to figure out who all lives there, to be honest.
But here's a crazy thought. Those microbes, they actually outnumber your own human cells by like 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Are you serious? So you're telling me I'm more microbe than man?
Well, in a way, yeah. But think of it this way. You're never truly alone. You walk into a room and you're bringing trillions of little friends with you.
I guess it's a good thing they're the friendly type, right? Most of them. That's actually one of the most fascinating things about this whole system. From the moment we're born, we're exposed to this incredible diversity of microbes. And that very first encounter, that's what really sets the stage for how our immune system develops throughout our lives.
Hold on, so you're saying even before we're like crawling around eating dirt and, making friends with the dog, our microbiome is already taking shape.
You got it. Now, the womb itself, it's not exactly a microbial free-for-all. It's not sterile, but it's a pretty exclusive club.
Yeah.
But birth, that's when the party really starts. It's like your immune system is suddenly thrown into this huge room full of strangers, and it has to figure out who to dance with.
So we're not just entering the world. We're entering a whole new ecosystem, and our poor immune system has to adapt on the fly.
That's the beauty of it. And you know what's even more amazing? Breast milk.
Okay, yeah, breast milk, amazing. We all know it's like liquid gold, but what does it have to do with all of this?
It's not just about nutrition. It's like this perfectly designed welcome package for all those microbial newcomers. It delivers not just nutrients, but beneficial bacteria and all these immune factors. It's basically teaching your immune system the difference between a friendly handshake and, a punch in the face.
So breast milk is basically training our immune systems to not freak out every time they encounter something new.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Which makes you wonder, with all these microbes moving and setting up shop, how do we keep them from, taking over the whole place?
That's where things get really, really cool. Our bodies have evolved this incredible defense system. Think of it like a microscopic fortress guarding your gut from all those potentially harmful invaders.
A fortress. Okay, you've got my attention. I love a good fortress analogy, so tell me more about these microscopic defenses.
Well, first you've got the mucus itself. It acts like a slimy moat surrounding the castle walls, sticky and slippery. It prevents those microbes from directly touching the walls of your gut, keeps them at arm's length.
Okay, so we've got the moat. What else? Archers, boiling oil.
Even better, we've got these tiny little protein weapons called antimicrobial peptides.
Antimicrobial peptides, that sounds serious.
They are. They can basically neutralize threats by poking holes in bacterial membranes. It's like popping balloons, but on a microscopic level.
All right, so we've got the moat, got the guards on the wall. What's next?
Well, no good fortress is complete without a crack team of highly trained sentinels, and that's where IgA antibodies come in.
IgA antibodies. I've heard of antibodies, but
They're like those super specialized soldiers, each one trained to recognize and disarm a specific microbial bad guy.
wow, it's like a constant game of capture the flag happening down there in our guts.
Pretty much. But, even the best fortresses sometimes have a breach now and then.
So what happens when some of those sneaky microbes manage to slip past all those defenses?
That's where our cleanup crew comes in. Every good fortress needs a good cleanup crew, right? That's where macrophages and dendritic cells come in. They're like the immune system's garbage collectors. They engulf those invaders, break them down, and then they show those fragments to other immune cells. It's like saying, hey, this is what the enemy looks like. Be on the lookout.
So we've got mucus walls, protein weapons, antibody patrols, and a whole cleanup crew. Our gut really is a war zone.
It's a
then.
delicate dance more than a war zone.
What do you mean?
Well, a healthy microbiome isn't just about fighting off invaders. It's about maintaining a peaceful coexistence. a delicate balance.
Okay, I'm listening. This is interesting.
And a big part of that is the microbiome's role in actually promoting immune balance.
So it's not just about having a strong army, it's about having skilled diplomats as well.
Precisely. And that's where regulatory T cells, or TREGs as we call them, come into play.
Tregs.
Think of them as the peacekeepers of your immune system. They're constantly on patrol, making sure your immune response doesn't go overboard.
So how does the microbiome fit into all of this peacekeeping?
Well, the gut is basically a training ground for TREGs. Certain types of bacteria in our gut, along with the byproducts they produce, they actually help these peacekeepers develop and thrive.
So you're telling me that by nurturing the right kind of bacteria in our gut, we're essentially training our immune system to be less reactive and more tolerant.
You got it.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about having enough good bacteria, it's about having the right kind of good bacteria that can actually communicate effectively with our immune system.
Exactly. And some of those bacterial byproducts I mentioned, like short-chain fatty acids or SCFAs, they have some really remarkable effects on our bodies.
SCFAs. Okay, that's ringing a bell. Remind me what those are all about.
Right, so when those beneficial bacteria in your gut digest fiber,
Mhm.
they produce these short-chain fatty acids. And one in particular, butyrate, it's like the VIP guest in the gut.
What makes butyrate so special?
Well, for starters, it helps maintain the integrity of the gut lining, which acts as a barrier against those unwanted intruders we were talking about earlier. But it also had these potent anti-inflammatory effects, so it's like a double whammy against anything that's trying to cause trouble in your gut.
Hold on, so we're talking about diet, microbiome, and immunity all tangled up in this intricate dance.
Absolutely. And that actually brings up a really important question when we're talking about infections. When we're actually facing a real threat, like an infection, does the microbiome step up to help our immune system, or does it actually get in the way?
That is a great question. It seems like it could go either way, right? Like on one hand, you'd think having all those good bacteria around would give our immune system a boost. But then again, maybe all that microbial activity could also backfire and distract our defenses when we need them most.
It's more complex and fascinating than you might think. The truth is, the microbiome plays both sides.
Now, that's a good cliffhanger.
Ah.
I can't wait to hear more about how our own gut bacteria are playing both sides in the war against infection. We'll be back right after this quick break with part 2 of our deep dive into the fascinating world of the microbiome.
Okay, so picture this. Your gut, it's like prime real estate, right? And those good bacteria, they've already snagged the best spots, the ones with the ocean views. You know what I mean?
I think I get where you're going with this.
So when a harmful microbe comes along looking to cause some trouble, it can't just waltz right in. It has to compete with the existing tenants for resources for space. And often those good bacteria, they win just by being there first.
So it's all about microbial turf wars. I like it. Survival of the fittest, even on a microscopic level.
Exactly. But that's not all. All that interaction with the microbiome, even the everyday back and forth between our cells and those microbial tenants, it keeps the immune system on its toes.
So it's like having a constant low-level security alert.
Exactly, like a border patrol that's always scanning for potential threats. This constant low-level exposure, it's like training exercises for our immune cells. It makes sure they're primed and ready to respond quickly when a real threat shows up.
So those good bacteria are like our own personal army, always running drills, keeping our defenses sharp,
I like it.
pretty much. But remember how we said the microbiome plays both sides?
Yeah, you said it was a plot twist. Don't leave me hanging. What about those times when our gut bacteria actually make things worse during an infection? Well, not all microbes are created equal, right? Even the ones we think of as good guys. Sometimes their presence can accidentally trigger an overreaction by the immune system. It's like calling in an airstrike when a SWAT team would have done the trick.
Oops. Collateral damage.
Exactly. And unfortunately, some of those pathogens, those microbial masterminds, they've actually figured out how to use that to their advantage.
Wait, so you're telling me some of these bad bacteria have evolved to actually manipulate our gut bacteria to make us more vulnerable? That's kind of terrifying.
It's a constant evolutionary arms race. Both sides are constantly adapting and developing new tactics. But that's why this research is so important. The more we understand about this complex interplay between our bodies, our immune system, and our microbiome, the better equipped we'll be to develop new strategies for preventing and treating infections.
Okay, so it's like we need to understand the rules of the game before we can start playing to win.
Exactly.
This all seems very immediate, though. Like we're talking about acute infections, something like, a stomach bug you pick up on vacation. But what about the long game? What happens when that balance in our gut is disrupted over time? I'm talking about chronic diseases, things like inflammatory bowel disease or even cancer.
That's a crucial point, and we're starting to see more and more evidence that disruptions in the microbiome, what we call dysbiosis, they're linked to a whole range of chronic diseases,
Mm.
especially in developed countries.
So are you saying that our modern lifestyles, all the processed food, the stress, the antibiotics, are actually making us sick by messing with our microbiomes?
It's definitely a contributing factor. We've really only just begun to scratch the surface of understanding how all of these factors interact.
So it's like our gut is like a garden. And if we're not careful about what we plant in it and how we tend to it, things can start to go haywire.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, so let's talk specifics. When we're talking about something like inflammatory bowel disease or IBD, what's actually happening in the gut?
Well, with IBD, it's like the name suggests the gut is inflamed, it's irritated, and often people with IBD, they have this overgrowth of certain bacteria that can actually fuel that inflammation.
Hmm.
It's like their internal ecosystem has gotten out of whack.
So it's not just about having too much of the bad bacteria, it's also about not having enough of the good bacteria to keep things in check.
Exactly. And it's not just IBD either. We see these links between the microbiome and all sorts of other conditions.
Like what?
Well, for example, rheumatoid arthritis. It's an autoimmune disease where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues, in this case, the joints.
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I don't really understand the connection to the microbiome.
Right, so we're still trying to piece everything together.
Yeah.
But research suggests that the microbiome might play a significant role. For example, studies in mice have shown that certain gut bacteria can actually trigger the development of rheumatoid arthritis, while other bacteria seem to have a protective effect.
So our gut bacteria could actually be influencing our risk of developing autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis.
It seems that way. We're still in the early stages of this research, but it's a very promising avenue.
What about multiple sclerosis? I know that's another condition where the immune system goes a bit haywire.
Another great example. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a complex disease where the immune system attacks the protective covering of nerve fibers. And again, research, particularly in mice, has shown this really interesting link to the gut microbiome.
Interesting. So are you saying that what's happening in our gut could be impacting our brain health?
That's what the research is suggesting, and it's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. This is also incredibly complex, but it's fascinating.
It is. And what's even more fascinating is that we're only just beginning to understand the full extent of the microbiome's influence on our health.
So where do we go from here? If our gut bacteria are so influential, what can we do to cultivate a healthier microbiome?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the good news is that there are things we can do. Remember that analogy of the gut being like a garden?
Yeah, I like that one.
Well, just like a garden, we can choose to cultivate a healthier microbiome by paying attention to what we feed it.
Okay, so we're talking about diet. Tell me more.
Yeah.
I'm always up for talking about food.
It all comes back to food, doesn't it?
It always does. So spill the beans. What should we be eating to make those good gut bacteria happy?
Well, fiber is key. Remember those short-chain fatty acids we were talking about, like butyrate?
Yeah, they're like the VIPs of the gut, right?
Exactly. And guess what those little guys love to munch on? Fiber. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Those are all music to your microbiome's ears.
So more fiber, more good bacteria, more happy guts.
Got it. What are the stuff we should be avoiding? You know, the foods that tend to make those not-so-friendly bacteria thrive? Yeah, you're talking about the usual suspects, processed foods, sugary drinks, unhealthy fats. Now listen, I'm not saying you can never enjoy those things, but moderation is key. Too much of those things, and you're basically throwing a party for all the wrong microbes in your gut.
Okay, so we've got to be mindful of what we feed our gut bacteria, just like we're mindful of what we feed ourselves. Makes sense. But what about other lifestyle factors? Can things like stress or lack of sleep mess with our microbiome?
Great question. And the answer is a resounding yes. Remember how we were talking about that gut-brain connection?
Yeah, that whole gut-brain axis thing is like our gut has its own nervous system or something.
It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that this connection goes both ways. Just like what you eat can impact your mood and your stress levels, those same feelings of stress and anxiety can actually change the composition of your gut microbiome.
So it's a vicious cycle. You're stressed, your gut bacteria get out of whack, and then your gut makes you even more stressed.
Exactly. So managing stress through things like exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, it's not just good for your mental health, it's good for your gut health too.
Mind, body, gut. It's all connected. What about sleep? Is that part of this intricate web as well?
Absolutely. Studies have shown that when you're sleep deprived, it can disrupt the balance of your gut microbiome just like stress can. And when your gut bacteria are out of whack, It can actually make it harder to get a good night's sleep.
So another vicious cycle. We've got to break these cycles, people.
We do. And one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap things up is the impact of antibiotics on the gut microbiome,
Yeah, antibiotics, they're lifesavers, no doubt, but I know they can also be pretty tough on our gut.
right? They're like a double-edged sword. They're amazing at wiping out harmful bacteria, but unfortunately, they can also take out some of the good guys in the process.
So what's the solution? How do we protect our gut health when we need those antibiotics?
The most important thing is to only take antibiotics when absolutely necessary. Overuse and misuse of antibiotics is a huge problem. It's one of the biggest drivers of antibiotic resistance, which is a serious threat to global health.
Absolutely. So talk to your doctor if you have any concerns and always follow their instructions carefully.
Exactly. And if you do need to take antibiotics, you can talk to your doctor about ways to minimize the impact on your gut. Things like eating fermented foods or taking a probiotic supplement during and after your course of antibiotics can help to replenish those good bacteria.
This has been an incredible deep dive. So much food for thought. It's amazing to think about this whole universe living inside us, influencing everything from our digestion to our immunity to even our mental health.
It's truly mind-boggling, and we've only just scratched the surface of this research. There's
Yeah.
still so much we don't know.
Which makes it all the more exciting. So where do you see this field going in the next few years? What are the big questions scientists are wrestling with right now?
One of the most exciting areas of research is in personalized medicine, tailoring treatments to an individual's unique microbiome.
So kind of like how our genes can influence how we respond to certain medications, our gut bacteria might also play a role.
Exactly. Imagine being able to analyze someone's microbiome and then design a treatment plan, a diet plan, even a lifestyle plan that's specifically tailored to their needs.
That's incredible. It's like personalized nutrition and medicine all rolled into one.
It's the future of healthcare. And then there's the whole question of the microbiome's role throughout the lifespan. We're learning more and more about how important those early years are for shaping the microbiome. But what about as we age? Can we manipulate the microbiome to promote healthy aging? Can we prevent age-related diseases by keeping our gut bacteria happy?
So many fascinating questions. It really feels like we're on the cusp of something big.
We are. It's an incredibly exciting time to be working in this field. There's so much potential for improving human health and well-being.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Yeah.
But the journey isn't over. I encourage everyone listening to keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep exploring this amazing world within.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one making groundbreaking discoveries, adding to our understanding of this incredible internal universe. Until next time, keep those guts happy and those minds curious.